All right, we're live. Welcome, one and all, GM, GAG, everybody. Welcome to the first installment of DevNTell during season one. Oh, yeah. So, if you didn't know, DevNTell is a 30-minute window for members of the DAO to showcase something they're passionate about or have been working on. This can be an awesome project you've been working on, demonstrating you testing best practices, automation goodies, smart contracts, how to structure a project, etc. Basically, if you got a passion for something, this is your opportunity to share with the community. And today I am excited to introduce to you Drew, who is a master educator and is going to be demonstrating to us his new project, 0xcorgis. Take it away, Drew.
Thank you. Pretty much thanks for having me. I am Drew, and I built 0xcorgis. Let me share kind of like what it's all about.
Maybe before we begin that, maybe you want to give like a brief intro about kind of what you do, or who
Oh,
you are, and like what you do in the Web3 space, and what kind of brought you into
yeah,
the DAO. Yeah.
yeah. So kind of, I came from traditional educational tech, and then I came from Web 2. I started doing data and full stack. And what was interesting, kind of my background was I was a traveling teacher, and I traveled around kind of like different types of states, Canada, also Mexico, pretty much in like the Americas. And then what happened was I was trying to become a missionary of teaching people any level, any form, pretty much programming and coding. And I didn't expect that because I was more of pretty much became a extreme generalist. And I started giving back to my community. I taught elementary school, middle school, high school. I became a professor. I didn't, never had a PhD, but I just started just tutoring and helping out other people in the space. What happened was pretty much I started building learning materials in the Web 2 space, and then that transitioned a little bit more into Web 3 because of a lot of people want more knowledge, more materials, and onboarding tools. So that was kind of like the goal. I started going through many hackathons, won some and lost. Just learned use that for learning,
Mm-hmm.
and then started expanding and met really cool people and started thinking like, yeah, I'm going to probably double down on Web 3 and try to make maybe educational materials in the future. So
Excellent. Love to hear it.
yeah, so you probably will see more about my the origin story and kind of like it was a wild ride. So I'll show you like it's also more of a conversation and seeing like a journey of like if you're building even something in tech, things will change and things that will pivot. So I'm gonna go probably share. So let me go through this. Everyone can see my screen, just making sure.
Yes, sir.
Sweet. So pretty much the goal of 0xcorgis was to make code cute and informative. Maybe a way to teach your mom, dad, friends, or families what you do in Web 3. So that was kind of like the new vision in itself. Kind of like a story, it was to create. I was never ever thinking of making a company. I was always going to think of just teaching. So I started teaching kids. And what was interesting about kids was that they needed something like some attachment or character. So I chose characters like corgis, and they're actually corgis means dwarves, and they're builders. They're herd. They also herd. They're kind of like dogs that herd like sheep or any other animal as well, and they are pretty much have short legs. If you ever not seen like pictures of like corgis, they're pretty kind of derpy, but they're very fast. So I started creating characters because some of the younger students that I had were fanatics about it. So I really wanted to research on the animal, but also thought more into like, oh, maybe make a coding corgi, right? But the goal was, this was the intention, was the story was that I had a student and she was a young little girl. Her parents went to pretty much a library and she asked me a question, and that question was like, am I dumb? And what her parents got her was coding for dummies, and she internalized it. And it was kind of pretty sad for me because I was the teacher to figure out there was not many learning materials, and this was in pretty much the tech space. And in itself, this was kind of like the book that she got. So I started thinking and working, and then started literally just figuring out like, okay, what can I do to help out? Like either our younger generation, our older generation, or even maybe your generation. So what happened was I started doing like Medium blogs, and the company was called Code with Corgis, and it was pretty much just like comic books, just materials, and it really helped out in the beginning. And it was more for data, it was for interviews, it was trying to set up your Git, it was like maybe data analytics questions, interview questions. So I started doing that first, and then I started getting some traffic, and then I started doing like Instagram and trying to do like a lot of other things. So it made me figure out like I started becoming more of like a comic book artist than a developer, and started figuring out like, well, these were all animated. Let's see how people got in, right? So I was trying to distinguish and made a brand, and then started YouTube, and it was just all animated. So I didn't want to show like maybe tutorials about myself. I would like my privacy. I just wanted just to make some character kind of like a beginning of like what Disney started, right?
Yeah.
And and then I started going crazy. And like 2 years ago, I was like, maybe I do not want to show my face. And maybe I would go back crazy and start building a giant suit like Iron Man, which was totally, I was probably crazy enough to thought about it. So I actually thought of 3D printing this giant suit, which what you saw in the beginning. And also, if you never noticed, there's like the curly brackets and also a parenthesis but. And it got really crazy as well, because then after that, I started using it for tech conferences and actually going through companies. This is me, and I'm in that suit. It's pretty big. The head is like 6 feet, and it has a vent. And I'm me fighting a robot, which that is a startup company that is doing a robotic arm and robotic kind of like movement. So it was kind of very interesting that people would attach to something that's very unnatural, and a mascot suit is pretty cool too in sports, in games, even if you're maybe if you're an anime fan, cosplaying. So it was actually attractive in that. And the goal was to wear this corgi suit and teach kids or any adult stuff. Maybe now I am going to wear this to teach Web3, right? So all that was a journey in itself, and it was trying to shout out and say, am I significant? And maybe all of those things were all maybe failures, but it actually gave me a better skill set than I had today. And now I'm creating like 0xcorgis, which was kind of like a Duolingo, a crypto zombie, if you ever played that, and this is a really good book of one of my manga guide to databases. If you do not like text, this is a picture book that will help you out to learn databases. It used to, now probably my goal is to make a manga guide for Web3, to be like a comic book artist, which I wasn't intended. And if you ever notice my logo and sigil, there's a curly bracket. So what's interesting is a lot of female developers or even college students or anyone in tech will see the curly brackets, but any normie that's not tech will just see the corgi. And that became a really interesting branding opportunity, which I made code with corgis, but people in Web3 will know like my sigil, and they will never see my face. So they never knew me. So I went to hackathons, they knew code with corgis, and they used it as college learning material, which was pretty awestruck, because I never thought like people used me. So that was pretty interesting as well. So then I started expanding and figured out that maybe I should make a mobile app to get more traffic. So the goal was to build this mobile application. It could be also web. And these are kind of like the goal was to defeat imposter syndrome and make like a video game. So that kind of like that Duolingo style, but with Web3 stuff where you can actually build and promote, right?
Yeah.
So can I pretty much make a identity? So the goal was to make an identity to a programming language and then make it into an adventure game or story. So we had like all these characters we grew up with, or maybe comic books that you grew up with. Can we do that with programming? So for example, like I had this idea, like maybe make every character, every programming language a character. So like this Python, you just give it some eyes and legs and then give it a name and then maybe make it alive, and then it'd be pretty cool. And then actually a lot of students loved that. And they wanted to make sure that like, they could see the symbol, but they have some character, right? So I wanted to create some characters within things. Like for example, maybe Git. Or if you're a Rust fan, Rust stations also. So that's pretty interesting in itself in the space. So so the goal was to make like learning programming fast, but also other Web3 technologies, which got a lot of traffic. And then the thing was to make understand like terms. So
Mm.
maybe doing like quizzes or puzzle games, or even just learning terminology in some way or some form. And then it can go something like maybe an urban dictionary. So it
Mhm.
got to something like maybe asking like what is an airdrop and how do you use it. So actually, for your parents or your kids or your young ones, they might be able to say it in a sentence and then maybe get some rewards or maybe get some, I don't know, some learning like for your own benefit, right? So kind of like the goal was to make like a small demo, and I wanted to contribute to developer DAO too and make like a kind of like a corgi skin or corgi character in itself. So like for example, this is going to be the app itself. You can see here, this is the demonstration. The goal was to defeat imposter syndrome, which maybe everyone has. And what it does is just to make sure it's more cute and it's not like super scary for a lot of people, right? So with this, you can actually see all of the terminologies, and you can actually change and connect your wallet. And with this in itself, you can connect your wallet, or if you're just not, you can even enter your wallet if needed. And what's nice is you can choose any from your wallet what character. So if you have like a Bored Ape, they can be your guide, or that NFT will teach you Web3 if you know it. For those who already know it, they probably have NFTs. But for those who don't, they could probably have like custom, like their own avatar, and they will be the character of their story. So, like for example, my favorite one is like if I have developer DAO, I can use that and you get a developer DAO corgi
Nice.
as well. And we wanted to also maybe do partnerships with other companies and maybe have like specific skins for the corgi itself and actually promote it more later down the road. But the goal was to make like games, mini games in itself, like in comic book style. So like for example, like if you're learning about MetaMask, it will try to onboard you what it is without having set up on your mobile phone. And I try to test it with like a lot of students. So you can see here, you can get it wrong and you can get it right. So these quizzes will actually just be a lot of mini puzzle games, just like Duolingo. So that's kind of like the goal itself. And then later on, we'll have things like a shop, a comic book, maybe a browser where you can integrate, and maybe it could be within the browser, it could be like a pretty much a Microsoft Clippy to onboard you to set up stuff if needed. But we wanted to make sure that like the app is designed really well, and then make sure that it actually shows a story more than to understand these topics, which could be extremely hard for a lot of people. So that's kind of like the goal of this demo itself. If you want to learn more, you can follow us on 0xcorgis.xyz to get the beta or early, I guess, like early access. We'll give you test flight and we'll try to make sure you can break it so we can fix it. Or if not, you could also follow us on like 0xcorgis, Code with Corgis, or DevNTell XY.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah. So I think that's all I have in itself going through.
So, that was wonderful. Gotta say, I love all the animations that you're doing there, and I think it's really cute and a different way of going about teaching folks. Especially, it seems like your main target audience is the non-technical folks. I think that's a great way to kind of go about things and test, experiment, see what sticks. And I gotta ask, do you have a corgi?
That should be. That's a good question.
Yeah.
I used to. So it was actually that was a good one. I was either buying a giant mascot suit or buying another corgi, and then I think
Yeah.
I think I chose I chose the giant corgi suit because I think teaching a real corgi how to code would be totally like I wouldn't be making a company at that time. So
Right.
yeah, so I did used to have a corgi itself. Yes, that was
Nice. Nice.
yeah.
And when did you kind of decide? Yeah, I want to do this full time. I want to put all my concentration into this. Is it fairly recent or?
Yeah, it was very recent. There was a lot of those experiments like Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and I working as like I wanted to make my side hustle a little bit more like fully invested,
Yeah.
and probably the best way was like maybe going through hackathons and figuring out like, do people even like it? And the thing that was interesting was the story was there was and Narb, you were there. I went to Graph Day, and then I presented my project, and that was. But what was interesting was a person, like two people, they didn't know what 0xcorgis was, but they knew my old company called Corgis, and they didn't know my face, but they knew the symbol. And these were
Oh.
developer advocates in Web3 that transitioned from Web2 to Web3, and they were all female engineers, and they loved it, and they were using it amongst their friends. They just but it was the demographic for me was like, oh, people used me, and they used it for like kind of like college materials. So that was kind of like awe-striking of like, people use this. So then that was the pivot point where I actually had to just like double down and work on this full time and test.
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah.
remember that. I remember that. You were talking about it. We're at Graph Day. Yeah, this is wonderful to see it come this far.
Yeah.
Anyone in the crowd have any questions for Drew?
Yeah, I have one. I want to ask about like you mentioned on the partnership side, the like down the line you were hoping to get like different characters also onboarded from different partner like DAOs partner projects. Could you maybe walk me through your thought process on that a bit more? Like what kind of characters would you like to have onboarded? What kind of DAOs would you ideally want to partner with?
Yeah. So like for example, like I would like I for me, some people came up to me and gave me feedback, and like some partners would been like build space, if everyone knows that, but they're not a DAO, but they're like a community itself. And then maybe pretty much market myself to like other female orientated types of pretty much DAOs as well, because people want something a little bit more accessible. So in my area locally, there's like blockchain babes, and they're kind of like trying to create like a DAO itself, and then making those types of characters. And that would be more like on their end, like, do you want a corgi or like I learned how to make like different types of corgis. It might be like a Care Bear style, but it could be also up to them, like what kind of character defines them, or if they have like an NFT, like can I put like maybe a corgi with the shirt of that, like just like how you buy merch physically, it's the same way, just making a different skin. And then that's up to them of how they partner. I just really wanted to also expand on that. We could actually make comics for their learning materials, and then they could also we can maybe split the proceeds too. It's pretty open ended. I'm just figuring out like, will this work, and does that actually give more traffic or marketing to them, or me, as well as for me too. So that's also as well. The goal was actually, it was funny. I wasn't expecting to do DAOs. I was supposed to go to tech conferences, and just like how esports works, where you have like patches and people have like sponsors, I was gonna have like people put in their stickers on that corgi, and then it'll be just like self promotion in itself. So that could have worked too physically, but also do we like maybe virtually too.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have and it doesn't have to be literally DAOs. You could just say like, Drew, I want to partner with you. I'll put your freaking NFT on my corgi, and then just do that, and then I'll just do a Twitch stream, and then you could just be endorsed, maybe get followers. Just like how people cosplay for anime, it's pretty the same for me. Like it doesn't have to be the organization level; it could be individual level too. Your personal identity. Like if I say, Narb, I'm gonna put your face on my corgi, would you would you be offended?
No, let's do it, baby. Let's do it.
Right? Or even like I could say like, I know Web3 like developer DAO has their own sweaters. I could just wear that sweater in a corgi suit and just endorse them, right? It's kind of the reason why I got that corgi suit. Yeah. So.
Awesome. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
We got a couple of questions inside the chat. Javi asks, all the animations are so good. the corgis, also the board ape. Are you an artist animator too?
Oh no, that is. I am a self-taught. Like, I'll give you an example. Like, I should have put the old design, but I did not and was not a animator or a designer. I just learned it. It took a while. Those many failures, and actually doing Instagram so many times and just trying to make like those cards just gave me more practice and just made my animation a lot faster. Like my first one was like an hour, and then I started figuring out like if you think of it programmatically, it's like, oh, I can try to increase the speed. And then once you do a lot of assets, you could figure out like this is how like video games were. Like if you compare like League of Legends and Riot, like other games, they had assets already built. So they just started expanding and changing it. And that's how they became performant. So I took a playbook on like video games as well. I even look at like lower, like if you look at like how like video games changed, like if you look
Yeah.
at like the 3D models of like Tomb Raider, it's insane. They just kept improving. So I started just figuring out like a faster performant way to make my animations. And the animations that I did in my app is not, they're not like, I have two types of ways to animate GIFs, which is pretty cool. And then also those animations are that are on the app are very performant. They're just like binary files. So it's really seamless. We wanted to make something very interactive. So if you want to also know about the app, it's not Swift or Android or even React Native. It's using Flutter because I just wanted to use the performance. So I had to learn that too, which was kind of hard. So,
Yeah, it comes with the territory. You're always trying
yeah,
to push yourself further, right? Awesome.
yeah. Oh, any other questions? I'm more of like a kind of like a conversation. I like questions so I can answer it the best. So
Yeah, yeah, likewise. There's a couple more in the chat. Pardon me if I mispronounce your name. Rocio Gonzalez Toral asks, does the corgi have a name? Your
oh yeah,
mascot?
yeah. The corgi, and it has a LinkedIn, but it's called don't. It's called Cody with a K.
Cody.
Kody. Cody the corgi.
Nice. Beauty.
Yeah. So kind of like very interesting.
And the other one, Wikist asks, do you partner with companies that take care of dogs, or have you thought about it?
Oh
Seems.
yeah, the intention was to be like there's two biggest like that's the reason why I got this mascot suit was I wanted to go to a really big convention like CorgiCon, and then also I wanted to also give back too. So like all maybe I would think of like oh all most of the proceeds will go to like women in tech because that's like our
Mhm.
it was crazy because I looked at the data. It was like a lot of females use that, like, love the idea. A lot of our users are all female. And then also, like, a lot of people who use us was also dog owners. They just love corgis or they love
Yep.
dogs. So
Yep.
that was like, okay, dogs, females. So maybe when we ship the app, we will just have some of the proceeds go to like maybe a female DAO or women in tech or girls who code, and then also maybe a shelter to help. I don't know. There's actually a shelter for like these corgis that have butt dysplasia, and they have like wheels. So it's pretty interesting. Maybe
Mhm.
it goes to those nutrients goes through. Um, and then also, yes, I was aware of Cody, Kody, but that's why the name was with a Y for me. So that was kind of reasons why of the name itself. So I had to think of every single possibility of tech and also dogs, which is kind of very interesting as well. Good questions. Your idea probably leaks to non Web3. Yeah, it does, but it doesn't give the hype and impact. A lot of times I did Web2, didn't get a lot of traffic, but in Web3 it started becoming more boom. And I did a test. I have like my Code with Corgis Twitter account, which has all Web2 stuff, compared to 0xcorgis. The amount of data, a lot of people are more interested because the learning materials in Web3 are not finalized.
Yes.
It's super saturated in Web2, so I had to pivot. Yeah, and I track a lot of corgi owners as well, and and that's also could be partnering maybe with other coins that are kind of maybe dog based. But yeah, but I'm more open to ask those types of questions too. So. Ooh,
Excellent.
and if you're interested in partnerships, just let me know. I'm pretty open ended, and I try to figure out like what is a good way for like even promoting individuals or DAOs. So that's up to you in itself. And if you want a custom comic, let me know, because then I'm pretty much self taught. So I wanted to be like a manga artist or a anime artist. So maybe in the future I might have an anime. So
Yeah, let's do it.
yeah, like a Hello Kitty style thing, or it could be like a Gundam. So and then yeah, 10 years and then we go to source knowledge. So
Great stuff, man.
it's mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe there was one other question. Any plans to shift this to a website from your mobile first approach?
Yeah, so I'm gonna ship it as well. We're still making it, and I did have a good idea, and I wondered if people will give me feedback. Is that I know a lot of times you might have websites or products that you don't want to onboard your users. So the goal would be in the website, we're trying to build like a soft, I don't know, like a corgi as a service,
Mm.
and we wanted to do embeddable comic books, and then maybe their NFTs, maybe in like maybe Arweave or like IPFS, but it will be like an iframe where you can put it kind of like on your site, and it could be an interactive. I would say it's like an interactive ad, but it will onboard you to like maybe setting up your MetaMask. So, and then a good question: do you have a team that helps you create that content? It's just me. I say we a lot, but it's just me doing all that stuff. So I did design, code, build, ship. It was kind of just a learning time. I do have 3 consultants, and they just tell me like what's cool, and they're non-technical, so they were just saying like they were telling me what I really needed to hear,
Mm.
because they wanted to be in the space, but they just felt that were not good enough, and they just felt like they were like, well, this is overwhelming, why am I here? So they wanted something like they wanted to use. Some of them were musicians, some of them were like from non-technical. One was a carpenter. Yeah, so in itself, so all this stuff was just for them. But then that could diverge to your mom, dad, family, friends
Yeah.
in this space. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I do have a TikTok. It's been a while. So it's still Web 2, and I'm changing maybe to a Web 3 as well. So try to look forward on my TikToks as well, or Instagram. They're very intuitive. They took a lot of time. So they're high quality too.
Beauty.
Using 3. Yeah. So.
Looking forward to it.
Yep.
We have a couple minutes left. Any final questions for Drew in the crowd? Going once. Going twice. Sold. Well,
Okay. Thank you.
yeah, my pleasure, man. Yeah, thank you so much
Wow.
for coming on. This was very engaging, wonderful discussion we had here, and it's awesome to see all the hard work that you poured in starting to pay off, and going to pay off even further in my mind. And yeah, uh, what's the best way for people to follow your progress? I know you
Oh, yeah.
mentioned a Twitter handle. Maybe you want to
Yeah.
mention
So
it
let
again?
me share like my screen, and then this is kind of like the best way to follow me. If you need to, you can follow me just on 0xcorgis or on, I think, Twitter in itself. So if you go to 0xcorgis, or if you're on my Web 2 one, Code with Corgis is as well. I have all social media in Code with Corgis in itself, but Twitter, if you want to see the progress of the app, it would be 0xcorgis. And I usually post like all my updates if you want to follow as well. And then also we will probably maybe later, like I will bring that corgi suit to wherever nears you, right? So you
Yep.
could actually see it. It's pretty shocking for a lot of people because it's huge. Yeah, it took a lot of time to build. So yeah.
Oh, you built it
So
yourself. Oh, wow. Dang.
yeah. It was. I did the design and then figured out 3D printing a large head was pretty gutsy, and then
Yeah.
actually the felt and all this stuff. And so I hope everyone enjoys that. So if not, you can meet me live and maybe in any Web3 conference. But I'm trying to figure out and build this app so I can give it to my students, and also like maybe your mom or dad or your brother or sister. So
Dope. LFG. LFG.
thank you, nerd.
Great stuff, man. Yeah. And with that, want to wish everybody a very happy Friday or weekend, wherever it may be. And maybe some people have a long weekend. So please do take the time to recharge those batteries, relax, hang out, maybe touch some grass, as they say. But yeah, what a way to kick off season one of DevNTell. Love it. And stay tuned. I will be dropping a link in the chat here, as well as the DevNTell chat as well, to claim your brand spanking new POAPs for season one. And Drew, I'll be sharing with you a special kudos for being a presenter here today.
Oh, sweet. Thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure. All right, gang. And with that, I will stop the recording.